Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us online today for this next session of the Founder University Bootcamp. And today we're going to be talking about federal funding opportunities, or excuse me, when I say we, Joan, our speaker, will, and I'll introduce Joan here in a moment. Well, there are many federal funding opportunities. Today, you're going to learn about how the federal government communicates grant opportunities and its requirements. Plus, we're going to do a little bit of federal government contracting information and learn about those opportunities as well. Countless companies have been able to scale their businesses based on competing for and being awarded these grants, contracts, or other federal funding opportunities. So this will be an interactive session. Our speaker today, Joan, really wants to make sure that she facilitates any questions and discourse from the team. So please put your questions, comments, anything else that might be pertinent into the chat. We will make sure that Joan gets those, right? Or Joan will read them off. But there's going to be quite a bit of hopefully some engagement with everyone that's attending today. And of course, this is a pretty technical topic, so we hope that you have a lot of questions. Joan is absolutely the expert on these. So a bit about Joan, though. Joan Rueben is the director for the Nevada Apex Accelerator, as coming out of the Governor's Office of Economic Development, which supports Nevada businesses in securing government contracts. She has over 32 years of procurement experience and has previously worked with NASA, Clark County, and the city of Santa Clara. Joan was part of an award-winning team for the Department of Defense's MRAP vehicles and has held leadership roles in the National Contract Management Association. She's an advocate for STEM since 1986 and volunteers for UNLV's College of Engineering and other STEM-related organizations promoting educational opportunities for Nevada's youth. Joan also holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration from San Jose State University and a Master's in Science in Procurement and Contract Management from St. Mary's College. And there are a list of other accolades that I could go on about with Joan, but I will let Joan fill in any further parts about her background. And again, Joan, thank you so much for joining us. This is a topic that has quite a lot of questions from us. We get a lot of inquiries in this, and of course, a technical topic. So thank you for joining us and lending your insight and expertise on this.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, StartUpNV, for having me. It's a privilege to be presenting today and getting to speak and interact with hopefully all of you. So again, my name is Joan Rueben. I am the director of the Nevada Apex Accelerator. Apex is not an acronym. It simply means summit or high point, because when it comes to, for example, finding and hopefully winning those federal funding opportunities or instruments, you are able to reach a high point for your companies. So today, with it being November 16th, just wanted to quickly share that I am actually based in Las Vegas, and how exciting it is that we actually have the F1 Formula One racing here in town. So whatever your opinion is, good, bad, or indifferent, I did want to share that this city is basically bracing for all of the practice sessions that those race cars and race drivers are going to be doing today, tomorrow, and leading up to the races on Saturday. So I do want to thank the Founder University and all those companies that are I want to say are part of the StartUpNV ecosystem. It's a major thing to be keeping your businesses, your startup businesses, and otherwise alive, given the business conditions that are going on right now. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I did want to share that the federal government level, to include, for example, the U.S. Department of Defense and other agencies, they view businesses in the respective states across the U.S. as part of not just, for example, the private sector or the industrial base, but it's really the business base for the entire nation. So I just want to applaud all of you for having businesses in our great state and in our nation. So what happens is, the federal government agencies, anything spanning, for example, from the U.S. Department of Defense and say all of their service branches to include, but is not limited to, say, for example, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Army, and so on. Or it could be NASA, the National Aeronautics for Space Administration. It could be, for example, Department of Energy. It could be the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and so on. These respective agencies each have missions, and with those missions, they rely on private sector companies to help accomplish those missions. And so, for example, when it comes to maybe NASA, we might have heard of so many of their contractors that do business with them, which could be, for example, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, the list goes on. But for example, a lot of those companies actually have so many suppliers and subcontractors. And so the supply chains are very vast and wide and deep. And so the federal government, as a value proposition, they want to award contracts and other funding instruments to companies in the private sector to actually engage with them and help them meet their missions, not just for their respective agencies, but for the entire nation. And so they do want businesses to be diversifying their business portfolios outside of the private sector and really want businesses to engage in the public sector. And we'll be getting into that in just a little bit. Today I'm going to be talking about some federal funding opportunities, or synonymously instruments. And these can come in the form of grants, contracts, and there are some other types, such as cooperative agreements and OTs, which are other transactions. All right, so generally when it comes to grants, they are issued by respective federal government agencies, mainly for a very broad and public purpose. So I just wanted to do an informal survey. How many of you who are part of the audience have actually been awarded a grant that you actually applied for within the grants.gov website? So if you could either put information in the chat, or if you could just, if you're able to maybe raise your hand with the hand icon, that would be great. Okay, so how the federal government actually communicates what types of grant opportunities and even, for example, cooperative agreement opportunities, they communicate this by using grants.gov. So right here, we actually have a screenshot directly from their website where, for example, there is basically filters where you can actually look up based on keywords or phrases, maybe what your business might be interested in being involved in with the federal government, at whether it's one agency or multiple agencies. So you would actually just use filters here on the left and actually insert what you would like to see. So this is actually from the website. You can see there are 129 pages of grant opportunities with the federal government through a variety of agencies. Here, for example, the Department of State, DOS has an opportunity. DOE, Department of Energy has one, as well as the Department of Labor. And the list goes on and on. What I did before was I actually had entered under keywords. I entered energy and technologies, say, for example, because of my interest in just knowing about what innovative opportunities are there, for example, for businesses that want to contribute to the Department of Energy relative to batteries, nuclear science, and so on. And this actually came up. And what you can do based on getting to this screen whenever you're searching grants.gov, you're going to see an opportunity laid out with a number of tabs. So the Department of Energy is saying, okay, here on the synopsis tab, which is shown in part, you're able to see what type of opportunity they have relative to, for example, batteries, nuclear science, and so on. And then you would actually just keep drilling down. You could see what is it that Department of Energy is sharing with me that might entice my business to actually submit a response to their, whether it's a funding opportunity announcement or another type of solicitation. So here we actually see the document type here. It's a grants notice. So for example, like I showed earlier, grants.gov will have not only grants notices, but they could have cooperative agreement notices. But this grants notice is specifically, again, it's for new innovators, impact technologies and energy. And as we see, they basically just posted this month this type of opportunity, and this opportunity will not close until it's like January 5th of next year. And so what you don't see is the rest of the opportunity to show you what exactly they're communicating. They're communicating not only their requirements, how they want you to propose and submit documents. So all those directions related to this specific opportunity would be included in the actual grant opportunity, like what you see here. When we drill down a little further to this opportunity, you can see here that, again, the funding instrument type that they expect to award in response to this opportunity will be a grant. And when you look further on the actual web page, you're going to see the eligible applicants. And for many of you, startup small businesses, you might be interested in, for example, responding to this particular potential deal. But what's nice is the federal government will lay out who exactly is able to apply. So again, with it showing here at the very bottom, small businesses that would be interested would be eligible to apply. So when you drill down further, down to when you look at the documents tab, or you're going to actually see, for example, the actual funding opportunity announcement by the Department of Energy. And so they're actually sharing the specifics related to the opportunity. They're telling you what's going to happen. They would like concept papers. A lot of times when it comes to the federal government, concept papers and white papers are synonymous, which basically is they're wanting businesses to submit your ideas that have been written down and documented. And it looks like they want it by January 5th of the new year. And they're also communicating that there's going to be a step for oral presentations. And so they're communicating it here within the document. So next, I wanted to show when it comes to contract opportunities, very different from grants.gov and those opportunities. So when it comes to contracts, we can actually think of, for example, goods and or services. So let's think about, I mentioned Lockheed Martin earlier. So many of you might know Lockheed Martin sells to a number of federal agencies, to include, but is not limited to, the U.S. Department of Defense. Well, when they're looking for opportunities, and even, for example, businesses that they do business with, they are looking at contract opportunities. It's this specific site at sam.gov, and they're able to see what exactly maybe the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Army, the Marine Corps, the Air Force. They could even see what other agencies are needing, whether it's NASA, Department of Energy, and so on. And they're looking specifically at this site as to how the government is looking to procure and acquire and buy needed goods and services that they need to accomplish their missions, no matter if they're part of the Department of Defense and defending our nation and our troops and our citizenry, or it could be, for example, at NASA, with their wanting to promote and sustain their mission when it comes to all things aeronautics and space. And so this is the site that they communicate their procurements, and they're going to come in the forms of requests for proposals, RFPs, invitations for bid, or IFB, requests for quotes, or RFQs. And so how many of you have actually submitted a proposal, a bid, or quote through the contract opportunities section of sam.gov?
I'm not sure if Robert did, but he did submit an SBIR some time ago, and it had a hard time with it. So hopefully it's good luck on the second round through. With now he knows a few things.
Excellent. And I can't wait to talk about SBIR later. And so this contract or sam.gov, when you actually go to the contract opportunities section, as shown here, there's also the CERT component, which a lot of Nevada Apex Accelerator clients use on a daily basis, for example, to find opportunities related exactly to what their business sells, goods and or services wise. And so this is an excellent capability that the website has. So when I had done a search, because of just my general interest in robots, I was able to find pages of opportunities, but I just wanted to share, just by example, what I found related to robots. And what I love about the contract opportunities section of sam.gov, it's actually going to show you not only opportunities that you could bid or propose on, it's also going to show you past contracts that have been awarded, and you can actually see, for example, who won the contract. And so there's so much functionality and capability within this website. But again, I was just very interested in robots, and this is like what had come up. So when I drilled down to find exactly what this one opportunity was, it has to do with amorphous surface robots. I found this actual announcement. And so when you're on the contract opportunities of sam.gov, you'll also be able to see this depending on what your business sells or might be interested in. Again, I showed you the search feature earlier, but this is how the government agencies at the federal level will communicate what they need. And so obviously this is an opportunity, a technology transfer opportunity related to robots. And then I could tell from the notice ID, this is coming from the Langley Research Center, which is part of the NASA family of research centers. And you can see here that as an example, it was originally published, last month, but it looks like there was a response date that was included here. And the response date will be next year in 2024. So that means typically you've got that much time to actually submit a formal response after reading every single page of the opportunity or document opportunity that's included in contract opportunities. I wanted to show the variety of procurement that the federal government has. And so I actually included this one based on a search I had done, but this one has to do with rock, band, sound, and strings. And it's a requirement coming from the U.S. Army. But I just wanted to share again the variety of things that you're going to find, as is the next one. This has to do with a requirement that U.S. Customs and the Border Protection has with regard to a workforce wellness app. So the variety, we have to remember, right? The federal government buys anything and everything from paper clips all the way to complex space research and development services. And so you are going to see that variety of requirements by the different federal agencies in this website. All right, next I wanted to talk about some other types of federal funding opportunities and instruments. So earlier I had talked about a cooperative agreement that you can actually find also under grants.gov. So in addition to grants, cooperative agreements are also under grants.gov. And one might ask, what is the difference between a grant and a cooperative agreement, especially since these two types of instruments are found in grants.gov. And so we talked earlier about how grants, are issued for a particular public purpose. The same is indeed for cooperative agreements. The only nuance is when it comes to cooperative agreements, there is substantive and substantial involvement by the federal agency in that particular agreement. So just to spotlight and give you guys an example, the program that I run within the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, or GOED, it's actually in place because of a cooperative agreement between GOED and the U.S. Department of Defense that actually is the federal overseer or administrator of the Apex Accelerators program for the nation. And it is a program it's based out of the Pentagon level of the Department of Defense. And I'll get into that in a little later. Another type of opportunity is called an other transaction. And so there are, for example, some federal agencies that like to award other transactions that are not subject to lengthy regulations and rules, such as the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So they've done away with those types of requirements specifically for other transactions where formal rules and regulations do not lend themselves to trying to get particular research, concepts, prototypes, or commercialization of a prototype into the market. So they actually will use another transaction as an alternate method to get what they want. A lot of times what we've seen is when the federal government especially wants to do business with, say, companies in the Silicon Valley area who many do not like a lot of the red tape and what's the viewed and perceived bureaucracy. A lot of times they will be responsive to doing business with the federal government, whether it's the Department of Defense, NASA, and so on, through other transactions. And a lot of times these are, there's just like record times in terms of cycle time. in an agency actually getting that required good and or service in-house at their agency. So just by your involvement, just so I can gauge how many of you have actually been awarded a cooperative agreement or say another transaction.
Joan, there is a question from Robert.
Okay.
And I'm not, let me know if it is practically pliable. He is applying for a 200K CBER grant. Some of the money is service, lab testing, students, other, and some needs to be for him to live. How much can the principal expect? Say a 6-month project, can I request 10K a month as I manage the project?
That is an excellent question, and I am going to discuss the resource for that in just a little bit. So before we eventually get to that and actually can address Robert's great question, I did want to share that there's this huge ecosystem, especially at the U.S. Department of Defense at the federal level, where, for example, they actually use these facilitators in industry. So these are not government employees, but they act like more like government contractors, but they're not really. They're more like nonprofits, but they help facilitate these business deals on behalf of industry, businesses from the private sector and the agencies, whether it's U.S. Department of Defense and all the service branches, Army, Navy, and so on. And so a lot of times you will see, for example, or you might have even heard of Defense Works. And so they are, from my understanding, a nonprofit, but they actually help facilitate through their ecosystem that they're in charge of, but they want to engage with businesses that would be interested in doing business with the Department of Defense and the various agencies. And so I was at a very large conference and I had meetings with the Department of Defense just last week in Washington, D.C., and they're trying to grow those that are actually engaged in this ecosystem. And they actually said, and they invite innovative startups, any type of company that has inventions, intellectual property, what have you, to be part of this ecosystem. And so I actually have a screenshot of this Defense Works website that you might be interested in checking out later after the webinar. Right, and before I end this segment of today's webinar, I did want to talk about Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR, and the Small Business Technology Transfer, or STTR, grants or contracts. And some might say, are SBIR and STTR, are those the same type of program? Well, they are obviously for small businesses that I would say are obviously innovative, but the difference between the two, typically just at a very high level, is that under the STTR program, typically you'll have a business that will actually team up or engage with a institution of higher learning. So it could be a local university or a university that's not local, but they would be wanting to work with. Some people might ask, well, why do you have grants or contracts down? What are SBIR and STTR grants or contracts? Well, depending on the federal agency involved in either SBIR or STTR, depending on the agency, an agency such as NASA, they only award contracts for phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. Phase 1 typically being like a white paper, concept paper. Phase 2, typically a prototype. Phase 3, full-on commercialization of your prototype, getting it hopefully to market. And so there is a difference or agencies only do grants or contracts. So, and another agency that only awards contracts relative to SBIR and STTR is the U.S. Department of Defense and all of their component agencies, Army, Navy, and so on. Some might ask, well, can you tell me some U.S. companies that have been involved in these innovative type programs? And a few that come to mind are definitely, I'm sure some of us have heard and know about 23andMe. And I actually brought a quote from the CEO who originally said, they were mainly started for, finding ancestry and roots for individuals. Well, they've actually grown so much where the CEO of 23andMe says, we're not just a genetics company, we're not just a health company, and we're not just ancestry. We're all of these things. We want to tell you about you. Interestingly, 23andMe has been awarded in the past so many contracts or grants related to one or both of these programs to the point where they were able to just grow the capability of what was just to tell you about your ancestry. So they were able to expand the reach of their product to actually get into genetics and DNA and health, which I just find so interesting. Another one that comes to mind is iRobot, a company that has actually won so many SBIR or STTR grants or contracts from the federal government. And when you actually look at this information, which is available on the SBIR and STTR websites, you're going to see their history of what they've won and for what. But it's so cool, especially when you look at iRobot and you see the different facets of robots that were funded by the federal government, whether it was related to sensors, chassis, or what have you, of an actual autonomous robot. And it's actually quite fascinating. And I suggest, if you haven't already done so, the SBIR and STTR website that's actually hosted by the U.S. Small Business Administration is a great site to just check out and just navigate through. Related to these two federal government programs, I did want to share statewide resources for you. So from a procurement technical assistance standpoint, the Nevada Apex Accelerator, which I'm part of, is actually a statewide program, and we actually have offices here in Las Vegas and in Carson City, but we service the entire state, even if it's, for example, hopping on a virtual meeting or even talking over the phone or just email back and forth. So we can actually help to counsel businesses on these programs from a procurement standpoint. When it comes to a technology standpoint, program management standpoint, commercialization plan, and the list goes on, say those things that the Nevada Apex Accelerator cannot work with, the best resources that are free for all of you. And mind you, these resources are actually funded by the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development. We actually have two resources in the state. We have SAGE North and SAGE South. So we have the Sierra Accelerator for Growth and Entrepreneurship, or SAGE, at UNR in Northern Nevada. And here in Southern Nevada, we actually have SAGE South, which is out of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. All right, and then I did want to go into something that one or some or all of you might have seen, but I did see yesterday that UNR actually published the results from their Nevada, or I shouldn't say that. UNR had published it, but it was on behalf of the Nevada Small Business Development Center, which is known by the acronym SBDC. But they actually have results from a Nevada 2023 Small Business Challenges survey that they did this past fall. And I just wanted to share a little bit about it with you because I found it so intriguing. And the SBDC had actually collected 580 survey responses from Nevada business owners and entrepreneurs. And they were gauging what is it that businesses, especially small businesses, are finding so challenging. And it says, I'm just going to read, for existing business owners, the top challenges cited were adapting to inflation. That was 44% of the respondents. Finding new customers, that's 44%. And then managing cash flow challenges, 30%. Managing business growth, 29%. And securing funding, 26%. Top challenges in starting a business, cited by Nevada entrepreneurs, 71% said securing funding. Next, 34% said developing a marketing strategy. 31% said developing a business plan. 28% said understanding, complying with government regulations. And lastly, 25% determining if business or product will be profitable. So I just wanted to quickly share that. And actually, one last point, when it comes to businesses that are actually operating in rural parts of our state, 62% of 51 existing rural small businesses, they found that inflation continues to be a major challenge. So I just wanted to share that. And then I did want to share that when it comes to access to capital, whether a business is a startup or a non-startup, here at the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, or GOED, there is a Nevada State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI program. And if one is to go to the GOED website, you're able to look at what types of opportunities there are when it comes to accessing capital. So the U.S. Department of Treasury had awarded a number of states with funding for the respective states to get out to businesses who need capital. And so I just wanted to make sure I shared that. And so what I'd love to do is actually have, questions and answers with all of you, and then maybe the last 7 to 10 minutes of the webinar that would take us to 1 o'clock. I did want to go over some slides about the Nevada Apex Accelerator, but before we do that, maybe Logan, you can help to facilitate any questions.
Well, we do have and this is from Robert again, adding more context to his current application and asking for some insight on that. So he says their goal recommended by the SBIR officer is to divide our project into multiple steps to win multiple awards. Our CBER application will use a UNR as a subcontractor, and our STTR application will be with UNR to install a pilot project for $600K, which requires a breakup of tasks or milestones. Do you have any comments or suggestions on segregating a project into parts within the context, again, those multiple awards that they'll delineate along those kind of project milestones?
Right. That is definitely something that I would actually discuss maybe with the Sage North or the Sage South office, because they can give, greater insight into how that could be handled, or if it should not be, handled as you suggest, Robert. And so I think that could be best addressed with the Sage professionals.
Gotcha. Okay. And he also, had more of a comment. Speaking of UNR, he's wondering if you might want to mention NCAR at UNR. Their charters to help commercialize projects made in Nevada, and he's working with the NCARs. And is NCAR do any facilitation for these types of federal programs or federal or grants? Or are you familiar with that program?
I am not. And so thank you so much for sharing that with me. I am familiar with Made in Nevada. Absolutely familiar with that program, but not the NCAR.
Okay. From John, can you please discuss qualification criteria for the SSBCI program?
Yes. So what my colleague within GoEd, his name is Karsten Heise, what he would actually recommend is going to the GoEd website, goed.nv.gov, and seeing the 5 different, the actual access to capital programs, and actually clicking on the different live links for each of the 5 programs to see what each program is, who qualifies, what is this program, but there are 5 actually listed in the GoEd website, again, under SSBCI.
Gotcha. From Robert, what is the Made in Nevada program? Or is it a program or is it an initiative? What is that?
It's interesting because whenever I go to Small Business Development Center or Nevada SBDC events, I know that they have, I believe it's within their team, someone who actually is overlooking the Made in Nevada program. And so I remember during the prime of COVID, actually going to an in-person event at the link here on the Las Vegas Strip. And I actually got to meet with somebody who was helping to promote Made in Nevada products. And he had actually brought a sample of a Made in Nevada product. And it was actually a Made in Nevada basket full of, I think they were like, I don't know if it was like mustards or jellies. And it was stuff that is made in Nevada by Nevada small businesses. And I know that's just a sample of what they're actually, what they're helping to promote. But what I like is there's actually this certain website that Made in Nevada, SBDC, GoEd, and others, they're actually trying to help promote those types of businesses like Made in Nevada business participants. But they actually are using a website, I believe it's called the Nevada Entrepreneurship Network, or NEN. If you go to that website, you're going to see, hopefully you'll see the Made in Nevada program, but you're going to see the different or various types, hopefully, of businesses that are participating in this Nevada, Made in Nevada program.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions from online, please put them in the chat. We'll give it a few seconds and then we'll let Joan move forward. All right, Joan, go ahead. I know that you want to discuss a few other items and, of course, the Apex Accelerator itself. So we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so again, I'm the director of the Nevada Apex Accelerator. We are a division within GoEd, and we are previously, we're formally named the Nevada Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC. However, our federal funder had decided all the Apex accelerators across the U.S. would actually have a rebranding and name change late last year. So our Apex Accelerator, so being a division within GoEd, we've actually been around since the 1980s, which to me is just so amazing. And we are a taxpayer-funded resource to help Nevada businesses such as yours pursue, basically pursue, compete for, hopefully be considered for, and win and be awarded contracts, and other types of federal funding instruments or opportunities at the local government level, state government level, and federal government level, regardless if the opportunity is inside or outside of Nevada. So for example, for those businesses who might be interested in doing business with NASA, of course, we do not have, for example, a NASA center or installation here in Nevada, but doesn't matter. If you're trying to pursue a contract or other instrument, we can try to help you pursue those. Again, they don't even have to be in Nevada. So whether you're looking for based on what your company sells, and looking for a contract with the city of Reno, Washoe County, city of Fallon, city of Las Vegas, city of Henderson, city of North Las Vegas, Clark County, the U.S. Air Force, say at Nellis Air Force Base, could be with the U.S. Navy at Fallon Naval Air Station, or it could be NASA's Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley, in California, or it could be with the city of Pensacola, Florida. It doesn't matter. We are here to help support you on your pursuits at the local, state, and federal level. And it's not just directly with government agencies. It can also be with the government's prime contractors. So if you're looking for subcontracting opportunities, purchase order opportunities with these government prime contractors, we are here to attempt to help you on those journeys. There is no fee for our services, again, because we are taxpayer funded. And I have to make sure I put in a plug for our federal funder, the U.S. Department of Defense, who actually is the administrator and oversees on behalf of the federal government the entire Apex Accelerators program for the nation. All right, and so I did talk about Apex as being in the U.S. states, but we're also, believe it or not, in some U.S. territories to include the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that for the nation, this program is very important to make sure we can not just sustain, but we want to grow our industrial base at all levels. So we here at the Apex Accelerator, we do have counselors that can actually provide one-on-one counseling with your businesses. And our counselors can actually, team up and actually provide counseling even from a perspective from more than one counselor, because many of us have a variety various backgrounds in government, and it might, while your company might be assigned to a specific counselor, there's always reach back capability into the organization should you need it. So we do want to help businesses actually ID opportunities so that you could bid and propose on contracts and other type of instruments at the local, state, and federal level. And I did want to share that we want to make sure that everybody knows just how lucrative, government contracting is. And I'm just going to speak from a contracting standpoint. And when it comes to government contracts, and not talking about the other types of instruments that are out there, but specifically contracts, when we look at data from the fiscal year end of 2021, there was over or about $650 billion worth of contracts dollar-wise that were awarded to U.S. companies. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that the value proposition is great, only because that number right before COVID and the awful pandemic was about, say, 500 billion. The fact that it could actually grow to 650 billion is huge. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows that there is a value proposition there. And so aside from contracts, again, we want to make sure that all of you are aware of the innovation grants or contracts and technology grants or contracts, especially through SBIR and STTR. So here at Goan and the Apex, we know that, when your businesses are successful in winning those, government or public sector contracts, you are indeed helping to achieve these agency missions, whether it's NASA's, the Navy's, the Air Force's, Department of Energy's, and so on. And the federal government and all government, they do want to see a healthy industrial or private sector base in the respective states. And as we know, as companies are able to secure those business deals and those contracts, they're able to scale their business and create jobs, keep jobs, and for Nevada, help diversify our economy outside of our traditional business sectors, such as hospitality, gaming, and tourism. So we also help with government agency registrations, such as the System for Award Management, SAM.gov. We can actually help to identify agencies and offices that might require the goods and or services that each of your businesses sells. And we can see, and engage how ready your business is for government contracting. And we can help navigate through the solicitation and contractual process. And one feature that we do like touting here at the Apex Accelerator is we do have a service that you can sign up for based on keywords or phrases that you give to us that relate to your business, where you will receive on a daily, weekday download solicitations having to do with your business that you might be interested in bidding or proposing on. And we do like facilitating those professional business relationships with anyone in procurement and potentially government end users. Quickly, the government does want us to share awareness about there are concerns regarding foreign ownership, control, or influence, because we have so many adversaries from across the world that are trying to, for example, access US and American intellectual property, inventions, ingenuity, and so on, that we here at the Apex Accelerator do try to give training on that. And we also try to give training on the federal government's concerns relative to the protection of businesses' cybersecurity infrastructures, because again, foreign actors and our adversaries are always trying to tap into weak points within organizations to obtain, again, our intellectual property, inventions, ingenuity, our ideas, our concepts, and help bolster their own efforts for countries. And we're obviously here to share about these government-led innovation programs, such as the SBIR and STTR programs. We are here to also just make sure that you understand that businesses do help to strengthen the supply chain at every level. Just think about, for example, Lockheed Martin and their involvement in building next generation fighter planes. Think about all the individual components that make up a fighter jet. They want to make sure that the supply chain is healthy at all levels. And they want to encourage businesses in all the states to actually work on critical and emerging technologies and DoD critical technology areas. Quickly, I just wanted to share some items that the federal government finds crucial. So when it comes to technology areas or investment areas, they actually want to see investment in the industrial workforce and the pipelines that would help advanced manufacturing, shipbuilding, submarine building, manufacturing engineering skills, machine tooling, basically the trades. The list goes on. And so I just wanted to share that. And they're even looking for ideas and solutions when it comes to, for example, castings and forgings, energy storage and generation, especially as it relates to batteries, lithium, I should say, batteries, rare earth elements, and the list goes on. And the federal government absolutely wants to see all small businesses engaging in helping the agencies achieve their missions. And they are promoting, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they do want to see these variety of businesses participating and winning contracts that the federal government awards. The last one, where it shows other underserved small businesses, they want to see businesses, especially coming from the rural areas. And they want to see businesses that are owned by Americans with disabilities engaging in the marketplace. So again, the Nevada Apex Accelerator, we are a statewide program. I would invite any and all of you who are interested to please check out our webpage. That's actually on the GoEd website. And we do have not only a linked information flyer that really details much more about our program on there, but we also have a client questionnaire form that is there for businesses to complete in order to be considered for acceptance into the Nevada Apex Accelerator program. And we have two offices, like I said earlier. We have an office in the state capitol, and then our other office here in Las Vegas. And the entire team, we are a team of 7 professionals. We are a very small team, yet I like to say that we're a mighty team, especially because these professionals that I have the privilege of getting to work alongside and serve as public servants. So with that, any questions, comments from anybody?
Excellent. Thank you, Joan. Yeah, please put your remaining questions in the chat. We'll field a few of these before we call the session to a close. There is a lot here. We do like to make sure we get off on time for those that maybe needed to head back to work or wherever they are. But Joan, again, thank you so much for tuning in today. There's a lot of content covered here. I really appreciate it. And everyone online, please take note of these contact resources here that Joan's presenting. Please reach out to them and utilize their resources here at the Apex Accelerator. Of course, feel free to reach out to us if you are looking for Joan's contact information or for the information about the Apex Accelerator. We tend to, Joan sends out information about upcoming sessions every quarter or so that we try to disseminate as best we can to our community. But again, Joan, really want to thank you for being here with us today. And any parting thoughts other than please to encourage people to take advantage of these wonderful resources at the Apex Accelerator.
Yeah, I just want to thank StartUpNV for having me, the Founder University for allowing me to spread awareness about the Nevada Apex Accelerator and just some knowledge that we have here, and we want to make sure that all of you are aware of, because there are a lot of opportunities. It's just that a lot of businesses don't even know where to start or even the resources that are available to them. So thank you, StartUpNV.
Thank you. And absolutely agreed. They just don't know where to start. So now they do. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This will be the last session for our federal funding boot camp. We're going to take a few weeks off for Thanksgiving, and we will return with our first of the compliance boot camp on December 7th. So please do not tune into this session next week or the week after. We hope that you are going to be spending this time with your families next week. And then the week after, we'll hope that you'll join us for Startup Week, Startup Week Las Vegas if you are in the South, and maybe you'll even travel if you're from the North to Startup Week and join us there. That'll be running through the 28th through the 1st of December. And then after that, we'll see you back here from compliance.